Hello, fans of the originals. My name is Mel, and I'm here to recap Season 2, Episode 19, When the Leave Breaks of the Originals, which aired April 20th, 2015. Before we begin, here is the release synopsis of this episode. Wayward Way, setting the stage for a bloody showdown, Dahlia gives Klaus and Haley a deadline to turn over baby Hope. Elijah attempts to convince Klaus that they need to work together in their fight against Dahlia, but Klaus forges ahead with his own dangerous plan, leaving everyone concerned about his next steps. Meanwhile, when Haley realizes their chance of outrunning Dahlia are slim, she devises a risky plan and enlists Aiden's help. Elsewhere, Freya gives Rebecca and Elijah an ultimatum, and Marcel strategizes on how best to deal with Klaus's erratic behavior. Camille and Davina are also set to star. So, based on that synopsis, and based off of the insider scoop the CW released, thanks to Michael Narducci and Julie Plec, executive producers of the show, it seems that Klaus is going to be going off the rails a bit from whatever Elijah and Rebecca have planned in regards to Dahlia. But one thing is definitely for sure on Freya's ultimatum towards Rebecca and Elijah. It's either they side with her or they side with Klaus. So basically, you are Team Klaus or you are Team Freya. And I gotta say, before going into this episode, that if I was either Rebecca or Elijah, I would immediately pick Team Klaus, despite all the bad things we've known Klaus to have done to them, for them, against other people and everything. Aside from all that, they have known Klaus for 1,000 years. There is no second guessing with them. They know where they stand when it comes to Klaus. They know how he gets in when it comes to certain situations. But when it comes to Freya, even though she is their older sister, they just met her. She is technically a stranger to them. So if you're going to pick between a man who everyone perceives to be evil reincarnate, yet you've known him for 1,000 years, he is your brother, he is no stranger to you whatsoever, versus a woman who is your sister by blood but is a complete stranger to you, who would Rebecca and Elijah side with? And quite frankly, I think it's Klaus, all because of that. And then before we continue with another recap, just wanted to clear up with Haley realizing that her chances to outrun Dahlia are slim. I have a little problem with that because Haley's 20 years old, and what world does she think that she can outrun an 1,000-year-old witch? I mean, if Klaus and Elijah and Rebecca, who are also 1,000 years old, are afraid of Dahlia, what makes Haley think she is going to be able to outrun this wicked witch, or hide from her? It makes no sense why Haley would run away from 3 people who stand more of a chance against Dahlia than Haley does alone. That's my issue. So, without further ado, let's get on to recapping the episode. So after the whole previously on the original segment that the episode starts off with, our first scene is found at the compound, and it's actually the sneak peek clip that we were given access to the previous week. And it starts off with Klaus and Elijah just talking over breakfast. Elijah wants to talk about strategy. Klaus is trying to get off that topic, but apparently Klaus has hidden Michael's ashes from Elijah, and Elijah is trying to get access to those ashes, since, as we will learn from last episode, the ashes of a Viking is what is needed to create the weapon used against Dahlia. So Klaus hid it, Elijah's trying to find it, and then in walks Rebecca, who is trying to cure herself of a hangover, as she was drinking to the death of Michael the previous night. And here's a funny clip, or a funny quote that Klaus, I thought it was funny at least. It's not every day you lose your father at the hands of your brother again, says Rebecca. And then Klaus answers, whoever said opportunity only knocks once. And this is to allude to the fact that Klaus not only killed Michael back when they were on their Vampire Diaries in Season 3, Episode 9, but he killed Michael again in the previous episode. So while Klaus is all for Michael's death, Elijah is not amused by this. He is more determined and more concerned about Dahlia, and the fact that Klaus killed Michael means that that may have ultimately isolated Freya from helping Klaus. And Rebecca agrees with this point. Klaus sees no issue with it. He still doesn't trust Freya. But before they can continue on, they get a visitor in the form of Josephine. And if you remember from last episode, Dahlia slit her throat with, I think it's the violin cue, or it's a stick or bow that the violinist used. So so Josephine appears with a scarf around her neck, which is kind of homage to that old tale I used to remember about the girl with the red ribbon and the green ribbon around her neck to keep her head on or something. Anyways, Josephine comes with a message for the Michelsons, and Elijah instantly realizes that it is Dahlia speaking through Josephine. And she is there to tell them that she wants baby Hope and she wants her by tomorrow night. Klaus is so furious that not only did Dahlia come into his home like this, but the fact that she wants his daughter, he beheads Josephine very quickly without even remorse. And it kind of reminds me when Elijah did the same thing to Trevor back on the Vampire Diaries in episode 208. So a little bit of a flashbacks there for me. Anyways, you start the title card, and then the next scene starts with them at the Algiers safe house, and you have it with Haley, Hope, and Jackson talking about Dahlia's ultimatum. And Jackson wants to run. He wants to run away with them, but Hope is being tracked by Dahlia, so Haley doesn't see how that could be possible. Joshi gets the idea that if Dahlia is tracking Hope's magic, then there has to be a way to stop Hope from using magic. And Aiden offers to help out. Now, when she brought up this idea, I thought immediately binding her powers somehow or taking her powers away. And I was kind of on the fence about that, because if it's binding her powers, okay, but if she's going to take her powers away completely, then that's like taking a part of Hope away, and that just doesn't sit right. So anyways, next scene goes to the cemetery where we have Freya and Rebecca. Now Freya is just created a grave marker for Michael. She's mourning the death of her father, the only loving parent she clung to while in the hands of Dahlia, and Rebecca comes to apologize and then plead Klaus's case. But Freya's not seeing it. She even says, Freya says, "I can't understand why you continue to trust him." And after she said that, she gives Rebecca an ultimatum. It's an ultimatum. You have to pick which side, either me or Klaus. So the quote is, "You and Elijah have a choice. From now on, it's either Klaus or me." And for me personally, that's not really a hard choice. And it shouldn't really be a hard choice for Rebecca either. But for Rebecca, it could be difficult for the fact that she's always wanted a sister. And here's her sister telling her to side with her over a brother who has repeatedly daggered Rebecca, who's stolen all of her lovers from her by killing them. So she's conflicted. So the next scene we have Klaus painting a lot. And I think last time we saw him painting was in 117, which was the episode that featured after Rebecca left town. And it was right before the whole uproar with the witches. So I think Klaus paints in the calm before the storm type thing. But Elijah is then there again pleading for Klaus to tell him where the ashes are. Klaus refuses to tell Elijah because he knows if he tells Elijah, then he's going to tell Freya, and Klaus doesn't trust Freya. But Elijah keeps telling Klaus that you cannot do this alone. But Klaus doesn't trust anyone else. He doesn't trust Elijah because he knows that he will run off to Freya. Same thing with Rebecca. And he's not going to trust Haley because she's siding with Jackson and the wolves. So really, he only has himself to rely on in hopes of protecting baby Hope. Elijah still doesn't believe that there's so much distrust between them, but that he wants to work with Klaus. He's begging for Klaus to work with him so that they can defeat Dahlia together, but Klaus is not having it. But then we have in another room, we have Aiden sneaking out the anti-magic handcuffs. And quite frankly, if he's in the compound, can't Elijah and Klaus hear him? Because I know in a moment Klaus walks in, but can't he have heard the noise the metal of the cuffs makes? I mean, Aiden couldn't have gotten away with it. I really don't think he could have gotten away with it. But Aiden pulls it off that he's coming back to report about Haley and Hope being at the safe house and that he only came back to get a stuffed animal for Hope. And then Klaus brings up the question of loyalty and how Aiden has served him well, and that reminding him that if you betray me, it's not going to end well. But then, so we think that Klaus maybe suspects, or at least I think Klaus maybe suspects, or he doesn't, but we see Aiden again at the Claire family crypt with Josh and Davina, and Aiden thinks that Klaus has no clue of what he took, and the fact that he is actually still siding with Jackson, or that he's no longer double agent anymore. And Josh is freaking out about that. He doesn't want to cross Klaus. He doesn't want to even think about what would happen if Klaus found out, so it's understandable. But then we get Aiden asking for Davina to transfer the magical properties within the handcuff, which would render any witch powerless, which is something that Baby Hope can wear. And that is when it's revealed that Jackson and Haley plan to run away with Baby Hope. And Davina actually agrees with the idea. She even said that if Cole had asked her to run away with him before he was hexed, she would have agreed to it. Which is kind of an interesting predicament, too. But I don't think it would have been that easy. It's never that easy. So then we head back to the safe house, and that is when we see Hope and Haley together, and in the safe house along the border there are vines growing, and Haley is soon to realize that it is the hand of Dahlia, and there are her specific flowers that are growing there too, so she knows that Dahlia knows where they are. There's no hiding it anymore. And so so Dahlia is quickly approaching it. She incapacitates everybody on guard with either a twist of her hand or a flick of her wrist, and it's kind of pathetic, really, but it just shows how powerful this woman is. And Haley's trying everything she can to get reinforcements, but there's no signal. It's just her and Dahlia now, and Haley is really worried because she doesn't truly know how the magical barrier around the safe house will hold against Dahlia. So we're left hanging there for a moment, because we are now going to Marcel's warehouse, where Rebecca is with him playing darts as she rants about Klaus and his lackluster attitude, I guess you can say. He's definitely not intense. He's very jolly, and it's like she feels like he doesn't have a plan. But Marcel even commented the fact that if Klaus is at his best when there is an enemy for him to go after. And then he even says, I quote, I guarantee he's got a plan. And whether that's true or not, Rebecca still worries about not knowing what Klaus's next move is. She doesn't like being in the dark. And who would, really? I don't blame her. So, we're back at the old church tower where Finn's hangout, one of the hangouts used to be. And we see Freya at a lit altar. Don't know what she's doing at the altar. It could be for another Michael memorial altar for him, but Elijah appears with a small token for her to add to the grave marker, and it is Michael's golden knife, and it is a knife that Klaus had stolen from him when he was a child, and Elijah managed to take it from Klaus, and he even included a little backstory of how Klaus had used the knife to carve out these wooden figurines for him and Rebecca when they were younger, and he'd say how his childhood wasn't really that great, just like how Freya's childhood wasn't that great. So there's a little history there, which I kind of liked. I always liked those little wooden figurine things. But Freya doesn't want to hear about Klaus. She doesn't want to hear Elijah painting him in a good light like Rebecca had done before. Instead, Freya gives Elijah the same ultimatum. It's either with me or it's with Klaus. And Elijah actually said that he's siding with Klaus to go against Dahlia, but he hopes for Freya to join their side. He even tells her that he doesn't want her to be isolated anymore. He wants her to pick them as a family, not just to go butting heads against each other. And reluctantly, Freya agrees only if Elijah gives him her word, or gives her his word that Klaus won't be their undoing against Dahlia. It's understandable, but you can't really promise something if another person's supposed to do it. So it's bound to go downhill. So we're back at the compound where Klaus continues to paint, and he gets a visit from Camille, and we haven't seen Camille in a very long time. And she wants to talk. He doesn't want to talk because he doesn't want to be psychoanalyzed again, and he already knows that Elijah sent Camille to Klaus to get him to open up, to get him to start talking. But Camille only wants to get Klaus's mind off of Dahlia, just to go for a walk, see how he's doing. Which is nice, but I don't know, I'm really glad these two have scenes together. After so long, I'm a big Camille fan, so bear with me on that. So we head back to the safe house, and it's Dahlia coming face to face with Haley and Hope. Haley is really bothered by this. Dahlia is ecstatic to see Hope again, and she keeps talking about having to come for what is owed to her because of Esther. Dahlia even said this, and I quote, "When I give my word, I keep it." And I think that is a strong testament, because Klaus and Elijah also live by that rule, or that moral code. And I find it truly odd that it's the villains that have that moral code, when it's the good guys that usually turn your back on them. So I just found that amusing. And then a bit of some argument between Dahlia and Haley about what's being owed to them, about having it being easier. Hope is handed over to them. But Haley's not having it. She even says, quote, "Come closer, let's see how a witch without magic does against me." And that's when she shows her hybrid face and whatnot. But Dahlia then brings up the fact that you have until tomorrow night to give me baby Hope, or else. She even smiles down at the baby and says, "Goodbye for now, little one." And I find that slightly sweet and very creepy all at the same time. I just don't know about Dahlia. I'll talk about it at the end from an overall thing. Anyways, we go to a street scene where it has Klaus and Cammy on an outside cafe type situation, and it has Klaus bringing up Freya and Dahlia and Michael to Klaus, and she's trying to piece together how he feels about the whole thing, where his headspace is at, and he's not fazed by it at all. He just brushes off her questions. He's not really deeply perturbed or disturbed about what they're talking about. He even says, "I see no reason to dwell on the deceased," in regards to Michael. And then even when asked why he'd kill Michael when they have formed an alliance with one another, he said, "I kill my enemies, sometimes my friends." And then he goes to remind Camille that I'm not a terribly good person. It seems like he wants her to stay away from him. It's like he doesn't want her near him, and yet he can't help but want her near him. It's a very confusing cycle. So in the alleyway, we get a scene between Josh and Aiden. And Aiden confesses that he wants to come clean to Jackson about Klaus wanting him to be a double agent. And Josh only fears for him. And then Aiden, proposes the idea of running away with Josh. They are a pack now, the two of them, and wherever they go, they'll go together. And Josh agrees, and they kiss. They say, "I love you" to one another, and the fact that they're so happy and the fact they have the plan to leave the city, it has me having a very bad feeling about these two. Something is going to break them, or something's going to rip that happiness apart. It's just the way they set it up. You can't ignore that. You want to be happy for them. You want to wish for them to actually go through with their plan. But with it being too early in the episode, it's something's gonna go wrong. So then we go back to the Claire family crypt where Davina has been holed up working on the spell for baby Hope, and it's the Cole's old clubhouse, I guess you can call it. And Marcel walks in and he briefly asks her how she is after Cole's death, and she even reminds him that he hasn't really asked about how she feels about Cole being dead. The only time he's actually looked in on her is after he had rescued her from the hands of Eva Sinclair. And that actually kind of sucks. And Marcel thankfully apologized for that, only to then ask for the golden dagger that Cole had been planning to use against Klaus. And Marcel wants to use it on Klaus to stop him from going off the rails and being on a destructive path in order to get to Dahlia. But Davina refuses. Thankfully, she refuses. And I think that she only refuses because Klaus still has to give her Cole's ashes. But in this moment, I found it very sad, the fact that the only time Marcel has ever come to check on her or come to see her is when he wants something from her, and that just seems wrong. And it's like, even in the previous episode when Eva Sinclair was being questioned by Marcel, she even brought up the fact that he did not even know that Davina was missing. I mean, like, he claims to be a very protective parental figure for Davina, and yet he doesn't keep tabs on her. He doesn't see how she's doing every day. It's like an absentee parent, even though he claims to be protective. So next we have a scene between Klaus and Elijah, and again it's the same argument. Elijah wanting Klaus to trust Freya, to trust the both of them in working to get rid of Dahlia. He even brought up the fact that Elijah at one point had a chance to kill Klaus, and it was brought all the way back to when Klaus had broken his curse in episode 221 of the Vampire Diaries. And Elijah even pointed out the fact that he had his hand around Klaus's heart. He was about to rip his heart out, and yet he chose not to do it. So even Elijah goes as far to say that Hope is also his family as well. But Klaus is not he's not stepping down from his decision, and he gives Elijah the same ultimatum that Freya gave Rebecca. It's either Klaus or Freya. I mean, for two siblings who seem to be at odds with one another, they sure think along the same lines too, though. I mean, there's just so many parallels between the two, and they don't even realize it. It's just, wow. Okay, so our next scene has to deal with Aiden and Jackson, and it's the scene where Aiden gives the spelled bracelet for Hope to Jackson. Jackson's thankful, but then that gratefulness turns into anger when Aiden confesses to the fact that he's been spying on Jackson for Klaus. A punch was thrown, doubts and loyalties were brought up, and Aiden is forgiven by Jackson because Aiden risked his life to get the bracelet for Hope. And Aiden even tells Jackson that he's leaving town. He doesn't deserve to be a part of the wolf pack anymore. But Jackson doesn't take it. While he understands he has to go away, he doesn't relinquish Aiden from his pack. So they hug it out. They're on good terms, it seems, for now. And they separate. Only to have a shot show Dahlia watching Aiden. And right there is a very bad feeling. You just know something is about to go wrong for that guy. So our next scene has to deal with the Algiers safe house again, and it's Haley telling Elijah and Klaus about Dahlia's visit. And Klaus is furious about it, and that anger is multiplied when Haley refuses to go back to the compound, even refuses to do anything that Klaus says, which makes sense, but it seemed more like a rebellious thing. It's like, you can't tell me what to do. She even said, and I quote, "From now on, I'm going to do what I want to do." Elijah tries to get between the two of them, not wanting to have to deal with them fighting when they have bigger problems to deal with. He even said something along the lines of how them fighting and tearing at each other is what Dahlia wants. But then Klaus goes, "No, everyone defying what I want is playing into her plans." And then he reveals that he knows what Freya had planned for Dahlia, so he knows how she was going to plan to kill Dahlia. Now, I think he only knows because of that brief moment where Freya went into Klaus's mind during that whole channeling bit a few episodes ago. I think when she had access to his mind, he had access to her mind. So while she was able to nitpick into his memory and see everything really, he did the same for her. And I truly hope that's it. And then maybe that is why he doesn't trust Freya at all, because he knows what's going on in her head. Okay, here comes the sad part, because in the streets we have Aiden being taken control by Dahlia, where she takes him magically into the streets and she starts tearing into him, scratching him in the neck, the face, the chest, before she magically rips his heart out, basically to frame Klaus for the kill, because she wants to put Michelson against Michelson, and she's doing a pretty damn good job at it too, which is kind of sad that no one can't see that. So there is our rumored death of the episode in the form of Aiden. And I wasn't really surprised by it, because of the fact that he planned to leave town. He was leaving on a happy note. He was cutting all ties, and it was basically set up for the fact that he was going to die. I'm sad to say. So then he is found later on by Joshua and Davina, who are walking to meet him. But instead they find his dead body. And then we see Aiden's body again back at the safe house when he's carried over Jackson's shoulders as he confronts Klaus, Elijah, and Haley. In his rage, he reveals that Klaus had turned Aiden into a spy, which mortifies Haley to the fact that not only did Klaus do this, but he killed someone who was willing to protect Hope so freely. And you can see that, as a viewer, we see that Klaus was shocked by the accusation that he killed Aiden. Not sure if any of the characters picked up on that themselves, but then he quickly takes the accusation and goes with it. He claims that he did kill Aiden to ensure fear into the wolves, saying that if you betray me, you'll end up like Aiden initially being killed. Tensions rise, fights are on the brink of starting. Elijah stands between Klaus and Jackson. Haley stands between Elijah and Jackson. Elijah even said to Jackson, "Do you wish to die?" And then Haley countered with something like, "You're gonna have to kill me too," or something like that. And in that, Elijah told Haley, I believe, to pick a side, either to stand with him and Klaus or to stand down, I believe is what he said. And I truly love that even at this point, Klaus has Elijah on his side, which I'm liking, because apparently we're not getting that with Rebecca. And with Rebecca, she and Marcel are reacting to the news that Aiden's dead by Klaus's hands. And Rebecca even goes to say he ruins everything he touches. And it got me thinking, with Marcel and Rebecca talking about ways to stall Klaus, to stop him in his tracks. It kind of reminds me of season 1, or even in their past when they try to conspire against Klaus to take him down. I mean, it didn't work when they tried to put him in the garden back in episode 108. It didn't work back in the early 1900s when they tried to sick Michael on him. It's like, when are they gonna learn? But anyways, these two are interrupted by Davina, and she comes and gives Marcel the golden dagger, and she tells him, "I want you to use it. I want you to put Klaus down." And things at this point are not looking good for Klaus. And it seems that Davina is not only grieving again, but she is pissed. And rightfully so. But it's totally directed at the wrong person. I would wonder if she would be that angry if she were to discover that it was Dahlia that killed Aiden and not Klaus. So we go back to the safe house, and Jackson is putting the anti-magic bracelet on Hope. And while he's doing that, Haley talks to Elijah and she wants to know why he's defending Klaus in his actions, and Elijah defends Klaus, saying that he loves her, as in Hope, and Elijah loves Hope too, and they're doing everything they can to protect Hope. But Haley doesn't believe that. She believes that she has to protect herself and Hope from Klaus and from Dahlia, and to do so, she needs Elijah's help to hide from Klaus while Klaus takes on Dahlia. Elijah doesn't think it's a good idea, but Haley begs him to just buy her some time to get away from Klaus. And things are not going to go well. No, they're not. And next comes the next scene with Klaus and Camille, and I gotta say, so much was said in this scene. It blew my mind away, and yet I kept thinking that something has to happen in this scene for them to just... I'll go into it after, but basically Klaus comes in and Camille basically confronts him about him killing Aiden. And she wants to know why he did it. Klaus doesn't say anything at first, saying that whatever he says isn't going to matter. But then she brings up the fact that about Freya and how she wouldn't do such a thing, use an innocent man to further her ploy. But then in that moment, Klaus says that he wouldn't either. Or he didn't do it either. The quote is, Camille says, "You didn't just murder..." She, as in Freya, didn't just murder an innocent guy. And then Klaus counters, "Neither did I. It was a reflexive thing." And Camille was stunned at the fact that he confessed such a thing. And then when asked why, he says that he had to instill fear in the wolves so that they wouldn't turn against him. And this is a sad quote, but he says, "Only I can save Hope, and I need them, the wolves, to fear me." And then Camille asks, "Am I supposed to fear you too?" And I thought that was a very good question. I mean, what is he supposed to say to that? But he goes on to talk about how he wished that he could tell her the truth and have it fix everything. Or how, like, somewhere down the line he can go find her and tell her the truth about it all, and she'd just believe him because that's who she is. And he kind of wishes that that could be it. And they actually step closer. He's caressing her cheek. My Camille heart is pounding because we haven't had a scene like this since like 205 when they both saved each other from Michael. So anyways, Klaus knows that even though he told Camille the truth about Aiden, no one's gonna believe her. And he knows there's nothing he can do about it. He even says in a quote, "A better man would protect you with that lie, but I am not the man, and so I leave you with the burden of the truth that no one would believe." And then he walks away. Which is sad, but at least we got to see this softer side to Klaus when he was with Camille when everyone else is trying to attack him on all sides. So after that, Klaus goes up to his room only to find Elijah there. And Elijah announces that he figured out where Klaus put Michael's ashes, and they happen to be in the paint, which is brilliant, having it hidden in plain sight. But I don't get how that helps whatsoever, because now he's mixed paint in with a very crucial ingredient needed to make the weapon, unless he plans to use the paint as well to be the weapon. I don't know. But through that whole thing, Elijah reveals to Klaus that Haley and Hope are gone, and this only infuriates Klaus and causing them to fight. To be at odds with each other to the point that Klaus has Elijah pinned down, but Elijah has the upper hand and daggers Klaus in the chest with the golden dagger, and he says, "For Hope," which I thought was just terrible thing for anyone to say, because in Klaus's mind that's gonna mean that, okay, you're daggering me for my daughter, and yet how is that helping my daughter when I am, like, he's like the more powerful of the two. He even said it, that Klaus even said when he was pinning Elijah down that he's the hybrid of the two of them. So how is Elijah going to overpower him, and then he gets stuck with the dagger? And then just as Klaus desiccates, two people join them. At first it was Rebecca, and then the second time the second person, I thought it would be Camille, and I would have been so heartbroken at that, but it turns out to be Freya. So his two sisters walk in to see him desiccate, and then with his body falls, the church bells in the background start playing Dahlia's tune, and everyone's just looking out at that, and that is how the episode ends. And I gotta say, I'm more surprised at the fact that they actually daggered Klaus in this episode when Dahlia was still out there. I mean, it seems like a pretty bold move on that count. They must have a really, really good plan to take down Dahlia if they're gonna bench their strongest asset, really. And also another thing, I don't think Klaus actually explained the plan he learned that Freya was going to use against Dahlia. Because I'm pretty sure there was a lot of fighting over on top of one another as he was explaining, but I don't think he actually explained what he learned was Freya's plan for Dahlia. And the fact that they daggered him kind of means that only Freya knows that plan, so now Elijah and Rebecca are kind of in the dark, or I'm assuming they're in the dark. But now I'm just worried, because when Klaus gets undaggered, which there is no doubt that he will, and I'm going to think it's Cammy who undaggers him, but once he does, he's going to get furious, and he's going to take down as many people who get in his way. But it would be so sad if Klaus gets undaggered only to find that Hope has been taken by Dahlia. That would be truly heartbreaking. But that is the recap of the episode. And I have to say, overall, my favorite part would have to be the Klaus and Cammy scenes, the Camille scenes, because we not only get to see Klaus having a softer moment, a softer side shown of him, and have him truly open up, but we see Camille seeing this side of him, seeing Klaus vulnerable, seeing him not with his defenses up. And I would have said that Elijah siding with Klaus would have been my number 2, but to have him stab Elijah, or to have Klaus be stabbed in the heart by Elijah, very similar to how Klaus pulled the same move on Elijah in the premiere episode of the spinoff. It still hurts. I mean, I guess now Klaus gets a taste of his own medicine, but to have it being done at such a crucial time as Dahlia's arrival, that's really gotta sting. Okay, so let's start with predictions. And my predictions is going to go for the next episode, which is 220, titled City Beneath the Sea. And based on the synopsis, which is, when Dahlia devises a clever way to get Klaus's attention, she reveals some startling details about baby Hope and leaves him with an enticing proposition to consider. Elsewhere, while Elijah and Freya find themselves with opposing views on how best to handle Dahlia's looming deadline, Rebecca, Davina, and Cammy work together to come up with their own strategy. Meanwhile, following a tense standoff between Elijah and Jackson in the bayou, Haley is left to make a difficult decision about her and Hope's future. Finally, Vincent, who is eager to leave his witch past behind him, approaches Davina with an offer that leaves her intrigued. Now, based off that synopsis for the next episode, Klaus is going to be undaggered. Obviously, maybe it's Dahlia who does it. Don't know why she would, though. But Klaus gets out of the coffin, for sure. And she's feeling something about baby Hope. Maybe it has to do with her mixed hybrid status. Who knows? It's going to be something big from the sounds of it. And from what else I could figure out, Haley and Hope and their future, I think Haley's going to have to make a decision on whether she's going to be sticking with Jackson or if she's going to stick with Elijah and the rest of the originals. And then, so that'll be interesting to see. But overall, for the last 3 episodes, because it's 220, 221, and 222, and then the season's done. Either my predictions be that either Dahlia is taken care of, or by the finale, or she's done in a way that it leaves us at a cliffhanger, guessing whether or not she's alive or not. Because I'm not really sure if they will drag out Dahlia into season 3, but she's definitely going to be with us until the finale. Because, and I think it's Klaus. I don't think it's Freya who defeats Dahlia, but if anything were a twist, it would have to be Freya and Klaus together in order to defeat Dahlia. But even though, while I like Dahlia's character and like the immense danger and villain-esque qualities that we've come to associate with her, I still think Klaus has the bigger reputation, because for 1,000 years he has built this very dangerous, vindictive, not a man to cross reputation, while with Dahlia we've only just heard of her this season. Even Klaus and his siblings have only heard of her this season. So while Esther has been fearing for her for 1,000 years, or Finn for however long, Klaus, Elijah, and Rebecca have had no word of her. So it leads me to assume that she doesn't have quite a reputation, as we are left with the impression now. So with that being said, I think that Klaus can take her on, especially with his hybrid status. There's always a way, and I believe if anyone can figure it out, it would be Klaus, and he's the one that will get it done. I mean, he's stuck with trying to break his curse for 1,000 years. So he's more determined than anyone now that if Hope's future is on the line. So, with that said, I truly don't know. All I can say is that I am absolutely glad that there is a season 3, because if this finale for the season ended up being the series finale, then I would truly be afraid of who would live and who would die. And that's saying something. Although I kind of wish we got a crossover episode before the season ended, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to, which is kind of a bummer. But I believe that is all I have to say for the episode. I hope I did fine. First time recapping an episode for everybody, but if you're familiar with my recaps from my live journal account, I basically just summarize whatever I had written on those recaps, because I tend to forget things very quickly if I don't write them down. So hit me up with a comment. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, who you ship, who you don't ship, what I could do to improve. Maybe I could talk slower. No clue. Maybe. We'll see. Tell me what moments you liked in the episode, which moments you didn't like, what plot twists you saw coming, or which ones blew you away. Or even hit me up with your own predictions and let me know what you think is to come in the final episodes of the season. So this is Mel signing off, and I hope you come and see more of my after show videos. Take care, everybody. Bye.